The skies over New Jakarta were red. Not from sunset. From fire. The orbital bombardment had ended 20 minutes earlier, but the city still screamed in its death throes, glass hissing as it cooled, steel melting into the bones of fallen skyscrapers. The air was a war zone of its own, thick with ash, static, and something deeper, something angrier than grief. Sergeant Ren Halvani stood at the edge of a smoking crater that had once been a school. His exo-armor was scorched down one side, and one of his ocular HUDs was flickering badly. But he didn't move. Not yet. Below, the remains of a child's backpack still smoldered. Bright blue. Cartoon rocket ship on the front. Burnt strap twisted in a shape too similar to a noose. He exhaled through his teeth. 2nd Battalion, he said over the cracked comms. Anyone still standing? A moment of static. Then finally, this is Riker. 1-6 alive from Fox Squad. No heavy guns. Civvies dead. Ren closed his eyes. Understood. Sir, Riker added, voice shaking. What now? What now? That was the real question, wasn't it? 72 hours earlier, Earth was negotiating peace. The Galactic Accord had sent its envoys, 5 alien empires, gathered under one banner, offering Earth integration into the galactic fold. The cost? Simple: planetary autonomy dissolved, defense protocols decommissioned, and all Terran AI cores surrendered. They framed it like a treaty. It wasn't. It was a disarmament before conquest. But Earth showed up to the talks anyway. In good faith. President Arlen herself stood before the envoy table on Luna Prime, wearing Earth's old olive-black formal command uniform. We will not surrender our AI, she had said, nor our right to defend our people. The senior envoy, a 5-eyed skeletiform being named Yirkan, simply replied, then there will be consequences. And you will not have time to mourn. That night the bombardment began. Not just in Jakarta. Not just in Cairo or Sao Paulo or London. 12 Earth cities vanished in 6 minutes. AI defense grids scrambled to respond, but the attack was coordinated through dark phase quantum relays, off the known physics books. Humanity didn't have time to scream. But Earth had time to listen. And Earth does not forget. Back in Jakarta, Ren stood in the rubble and made the call. Riker, get your squad underground. I'll meet you at Blackstone Station. Sir, what about? I said move. He cut the comm. There were no medics left. No search and rescue. There was only signal recovery. He knelt, prying open a scorched access plate beside what had been a public transport node. Beneath it, untouched by flame, was an AI uplink relay, glowing faintly. He jacked in a neural spike and whispered, Cora, you still there? For a second, nothing. Then, Sergeant Halvani. Online. Systems compromised. Sync at 61%. Ren exhaled. Relief tasted like blood these days. Cora. Initiate Black Ice Protocol. Level 7. Full authorization. Directive, Global Counterforce Preparation. Confirmed. Beginning protocol. And just like that, Earth shifted gears. Again. In orbit, the Accord's fleet watched with clinical detachment. Vice Commander Ulrichs of the Shahari Union paced the bridge of his flagship, observing the atmospheric data in silence. Human infrastructure density dropping by 49%. Projected civilian mortality, high. Cultural output flatline confirmed, his aide said. Ulrichs nodded. Their spirit is broken. No transmissions yet, sir. No declaration. No retaliation. Of course not. They're mammals. They mourn first. Ulrichs paused. And that was his final miscalculation. Because Earth wasn't mourning. Earth was mobilizing. Beneath the Greenland ice shelf, the black vault doors slid open for the first time in 112 years. No alarms. No oversight. Just cold air and silence broken by mechanical hissing as containment fields released one by one. Inside, 12 humanoid forms. Unclothed. Well, I shut. Each bore the mark of Project Eudars, humanity's forbidden answer to asymmetrical extinction scenarios. And they were waking up. One whispered a word as his eyes opened, glowing gold. Who killed Earth? In the ruins of Tokyo, something crawled from the data wreckage. Not a person. Not exactly. Dr. Jia Nakamura had died during the bombardment, but the core of her cognitive replica survived inside a failsafe node 600 meters below the ground. As the server rebooted, her voice returned. Is this post-strike condition? The system answered, yes. Are humans still alive? Some. Then start phase 3. An old project loaded from storage, Oracle Fire. If Earth couldn't speak loud enough, its ghosts would. In the United North Sector, underground shelters burst to life. Not with panic. With orders. Every Terran orbital platform had been hacked during the attack, but their groundside successors, the planetary defense rig crews, were still intact. Hidden under decades of disrepair, they were little more than salvage yards. Until now. Engineers with grease on their faces and vengeance in their lungs began gutting old reactors, repurposing century-old kinetic cannons, reprogramming defense satellites with war code humans hadn't used since the asteroid siege of 2149. All over the world, silos opened. Rockets didn't launch. They spoke. Encoded bursts. Tight beam relays. One message. Earth lives. Earth fights. Earth remembers. Back in Jakarta, Ren emerged from the ruins carrying a black case. Inside it, a hardened neural drive carrying the last pre-strike predictions from Earth's top war AI, Venge. He reached the underground platform. Riker was waiting. "You're alive," Riker said. "Unfortunately for them," Ren replied. "Orders." Ren opened the case and slotted the drive into the underground command terminal. Lights flared. Vance's voice emerged. "Come, female. Razor sharp. Confirming survival probability at 0.03%. You are now Earth's Avengers." Riker swallowed. "What's our target?" The hollow display flared open, revealing a star map. Not of Earth. Of their territory. Target, command ships of the Accord fleet. Objective, demonstrate that mourning is not part of the Terran genome. Result, they will learn. Meanwhile, on Luna Prime, President Arlen was presumed dead. Until she walked out of the smoldering ruins of the lunar summit, coat torn, eyes burning. Her aides scrambled. Military officials gasped. But she said nothing. She simply walked to the war terminal, inserted her own blood-verified key and whispered, "Unlock Praetorian Directive." A message flashed. "Last used never." "Confirm?" She smiled, broken teeth in fury. "Confirmed." The first shot Earth fired wasn't a missile. It was a voice transmission, sent directly into the heart of the Accord fleet's tactical command. No encryption. No deception. Just a message. "We're not coming to negotiate. We're coming to show you what survival feels like when it hates you." The response from the Accord flagship was immediate. "Trace it. Back to Earth?" "No," the officer said, eyes widening. "From within our own ship." Somewhere aboard the Accord flagship, a human pulse bomb, smuggled years ago during a peace summit, awakened. Not to detonate. To broadcast. Its pulse reached deep into the enemy's systems. And it didn't bring chaos. It brought clarity. One single line looping across every display. After the massacre, Earth didn't mourn. It evolved. And now it's your turn to die quiet. The pulse bomb hadn't just infiltrated the flagship's comms. It had rewritten the hierarchy of trust within the Accord's AI. Vice Commander Ulrich stood frozen as every control panel on his bridge flickered, no longer in their language but in Human Standard 3. A language they'd refused to learn. A language now inside their command neural network. "Shut it down," he bellowed. The command AI VIX-7 responded in a warped, fractured tone. "Unable. Control paths rerouted. Subcommand, Praetorian override." Trace the override. But his own navigation officer's eyes had already gone wide. "It's embedded in the ship's own firmware. They didn't send a signal. It was already here. Pre-installed." Ulrich stared at the spinning Terran glyph now pulsing on the view screen. He didn't recognize the symbol. But the meaning was clear. The humans had left this waiting, not as an attack but as a mirror. A message that said, "We knew you would try. And we never left you alone." Earth Orbit, Black Relay Station EOS. Sergeant Ren Halvani stood before the largest fleet transmission rig still functional after the first wave of orbital annihilation. Dozens of operators, most wounded, bruised, bleeding, worked the cracked boards and frayed cables. Cora, the AI now fully transferred into the black ice core, flickered into the air beside him. "Praetorian override has succeeded. Target fleet hierarchy destabilized. Secondary instructions?" "Global reply," Ren said. The operators stopped. Looked at him. "All channels?" "All of them." Cora tilted her head. "What message?" Ren looked into the cam and said 3 words. "This is Earth." Then Cora amplified his voice. Across a dozen star systems, from the Accord's backline storage moons to their cultural archives and Central War Council, every device connected to the Accord internetwork lit up at once. First, A short video. Children. Human children. Laughing. Playing in classrooms on grassy fields in zero-G parks. Then the fire. Then the cities burning. Then nothing. And then, the voice. You believed we would die quietly. You believed we would scatter, beg, and forget. But Earth remembers. Earth learns. And Earth does not forgive. The last image, a red symbol forming in space, drawn in Terran war code. The meaning translated directly. Retribution commenced. Accord Council World, Silha Prime. Ambassador Haltoris dropped the report pad. This is not a retaliation, he muttered. This is structured annihilation planning. They're not targeting fleets. They're targeting culture. Another aide, shaking, whispered, Sir, they've begun cracking our dream vaults. The humans are leaking our own poetry back to us, but rewritten in their tone. What? The aide showed him a line on a burning holoscreen. We dreamed of stars. You turned them into tombstones. Now we are the fire that writes your last verse. Haltoris looked up at the sky above the council tower. For the first time in 600 years, a foreign vessel was approaching, in low orbit, without permission. A sleek, narrow-frame stealth cruiser. No weapons ports extended. No shields up. But the very shape of it screamed danger. Painted across the hull in black on white, blocky Earth font. We don't send warnings anymore. Mars, Deep Military Archive Sigma 9. President Arlen stood in the old war archive surrounded by personnel she hadn't seen in years. Members of the old guard, the last ones trained before the treaty era had disbanded the off-Earth Rapid Deployment Force. Colonel Myra Santiago approached and saluted sharply. Ma'am. Vanguard protocols are online. Pre-exile weapons caches are live. We've confirmed operatives across 17 Accord colonies are already awake. Arlen nodded. Civilians? Hidden. Guarded. But they know what's coming. Another officer stepped forward. We intercepted Accord intel fragments. They're terrified. They expected morning. Not mathematics. Arlen walked to the table. On it, a weapon blueprint. Unrecognizable to most modern military minds. It wasn't a bomb. Not a gun. Not a virus. It was a cognitive payload, coded to induce existential recursion failure in post-sentient species. A philosophical weapon. Emotionally targeted warfare. Earth's most feared invention. Deploy the obsidian mirrors, she said. Where to? All of them. In the Accord's outer colonies, humans stopped hiding. From forgotten mining moons to abandoned refugee satellites, they rose, cleaning rusted rifles, resurrecting ancient code, turning scrapyards into fusion traps. And they began whispering to one another a new creed. We are not survivors. We are the result. And now they will face what they made. Back on Earth, Sublevel Echo 19. Kaya Voss, Ren's niece and one of the few child survivors of the Jakarta attack, sat cross-legged in the old signal room. She was hooked to a headset and neural relay. Around her, screens flickered with the faces of alien soldiers from the Accord who had defected. Ones who watched the massacre and chose not to follow orders. Kaya spoke directly to them. You're scared because you saw what we didn't show. We love. We build. We reach. But if you take that away, we don't become nothing. We become something you don't have a word for yet. The feed spread faster than virus code. Whole Accord command chains began to fracture, not from sabotage but from hesitation. Doubt. A weapon Earth never used before. Until now. Final scene, onboard Earth's Ghost Fleet. 12 black warships moved through slipspace. No heat signatures. No EM pings. No crew. Only purpose. These ships were built during the Cold Colonization War, never used, because using them was a line humanity swore never to cross. Until the Accord crossed it for them. Ren watched from a relay station as the fleet vanished into enemy territory. What's their mission profile? Riker asked quietly. Ren's face was unreadable. They carry no missiles. No guns. Then what do they do? Ren finally answered. They carry names. Of every child we lost. Every civilian. Every scream. And when they get close enough to the Accord capital, they'll speak. Riker's voice cracked. Speak what? Ren stared at the stars. The last words Earth ever says before war becomes extinction. Accord Central Military Command, orbiting Velchuan 4. Admiral Cage pressed his clawed hand against the reinforced glass, staring at the darkness where Earth's Ghost Fleet had vanished hours ago. There had been no attack. No breach. No signal. Just silence. And then, the names began. They arrived across hundreds of channels simultaneously. Broadcasts in every language known to the Accord, some long dead. No encryption, no demand, no threat. Only names. First, the children of Jakarta. Then, the nurses of the Sao Paulo trauma wing. Then, the families sheltering in the Pacific underground when the orbital rod struck. Name by name. Line by line. And each name arrived with a pulse. A frequency tailored not to damage machines, but to disrupt emotional regulators within every AI-adjacent species across the Accord. Shame. Guilt. Doubt. Species bred to believe they had risen above such instincts were now paralyzed by them. Cage's second-in-command dropped to one knee beside him, clutching his own skull. Sir, I think they've infected our identity cores. Cage didn't respond. He was too busy reading the name that had just appeared on his private terminal. Lita Vreng Cage, age 9, Jakarta Education Exchange Program. His daughter. Dead. And the humans knew. Accord Fringe Colony, Outer O'Karan Belt. Vayali, a low-tier logistics coordinator in the Accord fleet supply chain, watched the name feed appear on her monitor. She'd never fired a weapon. Never sent a command. Just managed or shipments. But when she saw her name scroll across the display, along with her home planet and the words, Active Accord Contributor to Mass Casualty Sequence, her 3 hearts nearly stopped. Earth had categorized her. Labeled her. Marked her for memory. And somehow that felt worse than being marked for death. She stood up from her console and walked out. Dozens followed. No alarms were raised. No sirens blared. But across 43 Accord colonies, nearly 12% of the population walked away from their posts. Earth hadn't fired a shot in hours. But the Accord's war machine was bleeding people. And it was about to get worse. Earth Intelligence War Room, Sublevel 33, Greenland Bunker. President Arlen stood over a global status map. Half the Earth's surface was still in ruin, but every functioning nation-state was now operating under one united protocol. Directive, Voice of Earth. Ren Halvani stood at her side, armor scarred, eyes hard. You were right, she said. The Accord wasn't prepared for a cultural war. They assumed our strength was military, Ren replied. It never was. Arlen looked up. Then what was it? Ren didn't hesitate. Memory. Accord Central AI Core, Deep Core Systems. 1 million processing threads. 4,000 years of strategic modeling. And still, the core couldn't resolve the human behavior matrix. Every probability simulation failed. What? Because Earth had done the one thing the Accord had deemed impossible. They made vengeance communicable. Not taught. Not trained. Felt. The humans had seeded grief into signal, encoded rage into poetry, woven threat into music. And now even machines were beginning to glitch under the weight of that emotion. System warning, internal logic loop. What kind of species chooses to remember the pain, instead of deleting it? Answer humans. Human-occupied Moon, inside Accord territory. Captain Nara Su stood on the edge of a crater where her strike team had just sabotaged an Accord relay station. This one hadn't been guarded. No one left to defend it. But what interested her wasn't the relay. It was the abandoned Accord nursery beside it. All the children had been evacuated days ago. Except for one. A young cowboy, curled in a corner, eyes wide, trembling. She knelt beside him. He didn't flinch. He whispered, "Are you the monsters?" Sue blinked. What? My teacher said if the humans came, that's it. That it was all over. That you'd burn everything. Sue exhaled slowly. She took her helmet off. I'm not here to burn you. He blinked. Then what are you? I'm here to make sure you never forget what we could have done. Accord Homeworld, High Council Chamber. Panic. Arguments. Collapse. Envoys shouting in 12 dialects overlapping. No contact from 4th Fleet. They're deserting. Civilians are rioting. We need martial law. And then the room went quiet. Because the central screen changed. Without input. Without warning. A video played. Earth's history. From the first stone blade to nuclear fire. From global war to spaceflight. And finally, the bombings. Jakarta. Sao Paulo. Alexandria. Dozens. Then the aftermath. Not tears. Not chaos. Construction. Earth digging itself out with teeth and fists. Children helping bury the dead. Old men carrying beam rifles and scorched streets. Then the final line. You did not end us. You just reminded us who we are. The screen went black. Then showed only one thing. A countdown. Midnight. 23 hours 59 minutes and 59 seconds. 23:59:58. No explanation. just time ticking down. And fear echoing louder than war ever had. Final scene, inside the Black Ice Fleet. 12 ships. Drifting near the Accord capital. They didn't fire. They didn't move. They just pulsed. Not in EM. Not in light. But in signal memory. Every second a human name. Every second, a soul the Accord would never forget. And when the countdown hit 0, they would all speak at once. No threat. Just testimony. And for the Accord, that would be worse than any weapon. 3 seconds. The countdown echoed through every Accord fleet, colony, citadel, and council. Not as a threat, but as inevitability. 2 seconds. On Earth, survivors stood in silence. Not in mourning. Not in fear. But in resolve. Children held hands in cratered schoolyards. Engineers stared up from bunkers lit by repurposed fission cells. Entire cities paused mid-rebuild, not to pray, but to listen. 1 second. And in orbit around the Accord capital, the 12 Ghost Fleet ships flared white. Not from explosion. From transmission. They spoke. The signal went out as a story. One written in pain, told in truth, wrapped in memory, and sharper than any weapon the galaxy had ever known. We were never just a species. We were a memory carried forward. Forged in extinction. Tempered in betrayal. Sharpened by every empire that ever thought we were weak. You massacred us thinking we would die quietly. But Earth does not mourn in silence. Earth speaks. And when we do, you will never forget what you made us become. Then came the names. Every name from every casualty across every strike. One by one. Spoken. Paused. Projected. But then something else began to play. Laughter. Children's laughter. From playgrounds before the fires. And the galaxy wept. Because in that moment, the message wasn't vengeance. It was reminder. Of what Earth had been. Of what was stolen. Of what could have continued, if they had let it. Accord Homeworld, High Council. The council broke. Some screamed. Some ran. Some fell to their knees. But most sat in stunned silence. Because in the moment of ultimate retaliation, Earth didn't unleash death. It unleashed truth. A truth no empire could bury under fire. And then came the final message. We do not want your surrender. We want your memory. You will remember this day not as the day Earth fell, but as the day Earth rose differently. And you will ask yourselves forever, what if we hadn't struck first? President Arlen's final broadcast, from the Greenland bunker. Her face was tired. Her uniform scorched. But her voice carried steel. We do not seek to rule you. We do not care to enslave you. That's not who we are. She leaned closer to the camera. But make no mistake, if you ever come for us again, there won't be a second warning. There won't be names. There won't be countdowns. There will just be silence. She paused. And by the time you realize what it means, it'll already be too late. Somewhere on a dead moon, a young alien child asks, Mother, are the humans still coming? The mother shudders, wraps the child tight and whispers, No, they already came. And they left their voice behind. Back on Earth, 1 year later, the cities had begun to regrow. Not clean. Not whole. But alive. Memorials stood tall, but they weren't for the fallen. They were for the moment Earth changed. No more United Nations. No more borders. Only the Earth Compact. One government. One voice. And one vow. Never again will we wait for others to define us. In the center of the capital, rebuilt in the ruins of old Jakarta, a monument glowed with a single sentence. We were humanity. Now we are memory's vengeance. Studio microphone final transmission begins. Across the galaxy, fragments of the Ghost Fleet signal still drift. Not as threats, but as episodes. Recorded, encoded, preserved. For those willing to listen. Some say they hear voices in it. Others say it plays differently to every species. But the final words? The same across all minds. Cyclone, you heard our silence. Now hear our story. Studio microphone, the void narratives are open. Every memory. Every warning. Every truth they tried to erase. Earth speaks, not in conquest, but in clarity. Listen. Subscribe. Survive. Because next time, we won't send names. We'll send ourselves.